In on the escalating conflict in Iran as attacks intensify across the region and crude oil prices climb. Joining the panel, Oxford Analytica Director of Analysis, Nick Redman. Nick, great to have you on the side of the Atlantic again. Welcome.
Thank you.
So your specialty is looking around the corner. Of course, we're watching the moment-to-moment in Iran, but what's on your radar for next week and the week after?
So I think the key question is how long the conflict goes on. The more damage Iran sustains, the closer the government goes to collapse. So for the Iranians, the key thing is to shorten the conflict. They've got two levers for that. One is to inflict American casualties. The other is to create so much turbulence in global markets that actually there's pressure on the president to call a halt.
Yeah, we can see them trying that. So once again, obviously, the U.S. military may be the most effective organization on the entire planet. But in the Middle East, the problem is not so much winning that war at first, it's what comes after, the day after, the day after. Is there any chance that the Iranian people can rise up and take over their country?
So they're coming at it from a very difficult position. There were major protests at the start of this year. They were really brutally suppressed. Official death toll was 3,117. Likely it was a multiple of that. So we've got a coercive apparatus that is still very strong, a leadership system that is quite institutionalized and so can actually survive people dying. So it really isn't clear, but the longer it goes on, the weaker this coercive apparatus becomes, the greater the possibility that you could have a change of government.
Let's hope so.
So what's the best case scenario and your base case scenario, and how wide is the gap between the two?
So the realistic best case and base case for the region, I think, is the conflict goes on for, say, 3-4 weeks. The government's ability to threaten its neighbors is dramatically curtailed, maybe to the point of almost negligible. And therefore, you still got a country that is more or less governed, therefore stable, not into a civil war, but actually less of a menace to the region. It's a reasonable outcome for the region. It's not a great outcome for the Iranian people.
What's the best outcome for the U.S. that we can expect?
Well, the best outcome would be a government collapse, which actually leads to a more stable set of arrangements, a pro-U.S. government, sanctions lifted, Iran and a country, 93 million people, open for business. But the problem is you only get there via government collapse. And once a government collapses, there are other negative scenarios, including civil war.
Is it possible we could end up with somebody who is worse than the guy we killed?
I think it's possible you get someone who's very much like the guy you killed, because the entire structure is designed to create people like that. So the three we've got as top possibilities are former Supreme Leader's son, the previous Supreme Leader's grandson, and the Supreme Leader's hand-picked successor.
Boy.
Oh, now, Nick, I understand there's a lot of disruption now in the Strait of Hormuz. Basically, it's too risky to let oil tankers pass right now. So how long might this continue?
So I think it continues for as long as the Iranians are actually able credibly to threaten Hormuz, and that could be quite a while. It gives the United States really a dilemma, because at some point, if they want tankers to go through, they might actually have to put the U.S. Navy in there, but that will put them right into harm's way. It's probably exactly what the IRGC has been waiting for.
That's right. I know President Trump this past week talked about that possibility, right, of the Navy escorting vessels, but that is problematic as well.
I'd say I think it's what the Iranians have been ready for. You come back to what do the Iranians want to do, create pain points on the global economy, but also to inflict casualties on the United States.
So, Nick, I keep thinking about Russia. And, Russia's an ally of Iran. They get drone technology from them. And so Iran being in the state is probably not good for Russia. But at the same time, you have the oil prices spike, and that's Russia's main source of income. How does this play out, these pushes and pulls?
Yeah. So I think high-priced oil is really good for the Russians. Probably net comes out ahead in terms of the loss of then access to Iranian drones. But I think the big problem for Russia is just, how do you read the United States? Donald Trump, the 2026 version, is completely different to what went before. Vladimir Putin thought that he was someone who's quite sympathetic to him, who was very cautious about the use of military force. 2026 turned that on its head. We had Venezuela, we had Trump taking that Russian tanker, despite the fact it had a Russian naval escort, despite the fact that the Kremlin begged not to. So Trump looks a much more difficult read for Putin right now. And when we add in these rumors, we've heard recently that Russia is actually helping Iran target US forces, it's very easy to see a situation where actually Trump is no longer pushing Ukraine to the table, might actually be backing Ukraine, which is a whole other problem. So potentially it's a game changer.
Wow. We've only got about 20 seconds left. We haven't talked at all about China and Taiwan. Any implications on that front involved in what we're seeing in Iran right now?
So I don't think the Chinese are going to try and take advantage to take a strike on Taiwan. However, it's a massive learning opportunity. We'll find out exactly what happens in terms of asymmetric tactics and cheap tech to take on the world's best military. We're going to see how Trump manages his alliance relationships, and also what his tolerance is for casualties and for economic disruption. This is really a learning opportunity for Beijing.
Yeah, a learning opportunity for all of us. It's a sad way to do it, but the info is coming in fast and furious. Thanks, Nick Redmond.
Thank you.
Elizabeth and Ben have a pair of investment ideas, and Jack says the United States has a serious problem. We are not paying our bills. Stay right there.